Now we have the story of 4 Toms: Tom Turner, Tom Tipper, Tom Rickman and Tom Paine. Confused? You won't be once Paul Myles has finished his story. They all had an impact on 18th century English history.
Hi, Paul Myles from VERRALL.tv. Hi again. This is the second of a series on Thomas Paine and Lewes, who left in 1774 to go to the North American colonies to write Common Sense, which kindled the War of Independence. He then wrote 13 crisis papers to study the American troops during the War of Independence, and many of you will know these words. American presidents have used them many times, that these are the times that try men's souls, and a few other choice phrases that are in the English language all over the world. He then went on later to write Rights of Man, Parts 1 and Parts 2, and Agrarian Justice and Age of Reason. His words resound around the world today, and if anything, will become more important during these difficult times. So what I want to talk about this week, actually, is not just Thomas Paine. I want to talk about a chap called Thomas Turner, who kept a diary for about 10 years of his life, from 1754 to 1765. And so he finished the diary just 5, 6, 7, 8, 3 years before Thomas Paine rode into town, and it's an incredibly rich resource. It's a diary that isn't written for anybody. He just wrote it for his own purposes. He wrote it on little booklets that he made up. He was a shopkeeper and a mercer himself, a busy man. He worked for the parish council and did all sorts of functions. One of them he used to collect. Let's just go to the screen and let's go to the next one. Here we are. Lewes in 1760, just 2 years after Thomas Turner had finished his diary, just 3 years. He finished his diary in 1765. This was painted in 1760. So this is in the middle of Thomas Turner's diary, 8 years before Paine comes to town. So there's a lot of details about Thomas Turner visiting Lewes, trying to get his money from rich people who wouldn't pay him, collecting people on behalf of the parish to marry them off to a girl who got into childbirth out of wedlock in service. A parish official then had the power under the poor law to go and if the woman named the father, he could go and collect her and bring them before the magistrate to more or less force them to marry. In fact, it might have been one of my ancestors, George Highland, who Thomas Turner writes up a detailed account of collecting him. And Highland is, my maternal mother was a Highland around here. It's a Sussex name. It's an East Sussex name. There are more Highlands over Hastings way, actually. So I haven't looked into it, but he could be an ancestor. There's not many Highlands around this bit in the middle of Sussex. So anyway, George Highland negotiated that the parish paid for the wedding breakfast and also for to set him up as a blacksmith. So it wasn't all one way, but he did marry her. And therefore the child, the bastard, if you like, the child out of wedlock was not a burden on the parish until whatever age it was then, 12, 13, 14, I don't know the detail of that, but they didn't want the expense of a child on the poor rates of the parish. So Turner, it's a very rich account of life, and it's not written for anybody. He wasn't a great man. He was never going to be a great man. He was upwardly mobile, quite wealthy in the end, and it's a wonderful account. In fact, it was with Keith Hayes that we first got this on air way back in the days of cable and radio. And the book that was the diary was found in a skip, and it was 300,000 words. And Edward Vasey edited it down to 80,000 words, and it's a great story. Everything he did, all his dealings, his woes, his innermost thoughts, it's wonderful. So it's often bothered me that Turner was around and he was a busy man. Did he meet Thomas Paine? Thomas Paine wrote it in 1768. Turner was alive still for the duration of Paine's stay in Lewes from 1768 to 1774. But tantalising, I've just written an article about this. We know that Turner knew Tipper. He was a great friend of his. Tipper used to visit Turner in East Hoathly, which is a village over here, about 5 miles northeast of Sussex, and Tipper came from Newhaven, which is well south, about 6 miles south of the pointer here, to the south of Lewes. And they explain the journeys to each other. There's about 8 mentions of Tipper in Turner's diary, and it mentions Tipper is an excise man. So I finally got round to this. I wrote an article for the Newhaven Historical Society just months ago now, and it's been bothering me for ages. I said I'd do it, so I went up to the queue to the National Archives, because Turner mentioned that Tipper was a part-time excise man. Tipper was a brewer in Newhaven. Tipper's Stingo Ale was very famous. He was a very well-liked man. And so I thought, well, even though Turner mentioned that he was a part-time exciseman, and they brought in part-time excisemen in busy times, in hop-picking times, and Sussex was a hop country for ale. There are oast houses all around here, oast drying houses. So for hop drying houses, oast houses. So the tantalising prospect arose. So I had to, but if I write something up, I went right. So I went up to the Kew Gardens and I found the entry. Tipper's one of his entries. I've got to go and find more. It takes a long time to find these things. It's a real research job. You don't know whether you're going to find it or not. But anyway, I found this one, which gave me enough confidence to write the article, and it's about Tipper being made port gauger in Newhaven, which is a massive job, very important job. And the fact that he could be in business as a brewer and also an excise man at the same time is really interesting, because Thomas Paine was a tobacconist in Lewes at the same time as being an excise man, and he's been attacked for that over the years, but clearly it's normal practice. So now there are things that link these men together, and one of them is the fact that this man, who's Thomas Cleo Rickman, was a great friend of Thomas Paine. Although he was only 6 years old when Paine rode into town in 1768, Paine lived with Rickman in London on his return in 1790 and wrote Rights of Man on a desk in Rickman's house in London, in Marylebone. Rickman was the bookseller and poet and writer by this time. And they were such firm friends that Thomas Paine left Cleo Rickman half his wealth when he died. Cleo Rickman went to France after Paine was let out of jail. He nearly lost his head in the bloody period, and waved Paine goodbye when Paine made his last journey back to America. So these two were very, very close. And Rickman wrote, let me just get this, he wrote the epitaph on Thomas Tipper's gravestone. Now that was built a bit later in 1830, but this is the rectory house, and this is the church, and this is the graveyard where Tipper's gravestone is. And this is his gravestone. And Cleo Rickman writes it, and it's a wonderful piece of writing. Reader with kind regard this grave, nor heedless pass where Tipper's ashes lay. Honest he was, ingenious, blunt and kind, and dared to do what few dare do speak his mind. Philosophy and history well he knew, was versed in physic and in surgery too. The best old stingle he both brewed and sold, nor did one knavish act to get his gold. He played through life a varied comic part, a new immortal Hudibras by heart. So these are very nice words. They're not about an excise man that everyone would hate or fear. This is a man that everybody loved. And Cleo Rickman clearly knew him well to do this. This is the old bridge over NEWHAVEN, by the way, carved at the time. And there's the date, 1785, 50 years old, a fairly young man. So there we are. We know this is the Lewes from the South again in 1768, just 3 years after Turner finishes. So Thomas Turner, the diarist, shopkeeper. Cleo Rickman writes on Tipper's grave. Tipper is an excise man, and he's an excise man at the same time as Thomas Paine, and he's in the 6th outright for Lewes, and Thomas Paine's in the 4th outright. And Turner would still be about at this time. So what the fact that this binds these men together is fascinating. And I should be doing more work at this, finding out more details, so we can actually get our eye on Thomas Paine. And Cleo Rickman has got an entry in the Oxford Dictionary of National Biography. We can see his portrait there by Hazlitt, a very famous portrait, very famous himself, Hazlitt. But we get our eye on Turner through his diary, but I want to get our eye on Tipper. He sounds like fun. So that's it for this session. Thanks for listening, and we'll continue this series, Breaking News in the 18th Century, on our next visit. Thank you very much indeed.